Hello, it's Dawn Michelle and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm gonna share with you how I've been working with the Gateway of Light Activation Oracle by Kyle Gray with artwork by Jennifer Hawkyard. So I mentioned this deck in my February 2023 monthly wrap-up reflections and how I've been working with it in kind of a little bit of a unique way. So I had mentioned in that video that I could do a video talking about that if anybody was interested, and quite a few of you reached out to say you were, so here we are. So before we jump into kind of like how I've been working with it, let's do kind of a quick little overview, sort of review of this deck. It is by Hay House. It's 44 cards, and I mean, I guess you could read the back of the box. It says, activate the ancient wisdom within. This oracle is a stargate portal connecting you with the infinite intelligence of the universe. Each card is an energetic bridge to spiritual retreats, chakras, and guardian beings, leading you on a journey to connect with the divine consciousness and receive messages to raise your vibration. So I call this the portal deck because that is very much how it functions for me. Just a side note, I have edged mine, so it does not come edged like that. Let's talk about the deck really quick. As always, there'll be timestamps for everything in the description box below, so if you want to skip around, you're more than welcome to. Here is the backs. On each of the cards, we have the gateway that is represented on the card, which he does go into more information about that in the guidebook, which is actually quite important, I think, when working with this deck. And then we also have 3 keywords, which is fantastic, and I'll show you how I incorporate all of that into my work with this deck. So as we're kind of just chatting a little bit about this deck, I'm just going to flip through the cards so that you can see all of the imagery. This deck is a deck that I use in a sort of combined way of my guided reading and keyword spread. So you'll see when I get to that point that I actually kind of combine those two sort of ideas in order to create one whole reading, which I basically call a portal reading. So this is, I guess, a little bit of a sort of DIY tarot spread in a sense. It's also a little bit of kind of a pairing video, but it is primarily the process of working with this deck and how I've come to kind of create a reading and a activity and in a sense a ritual around working with this deck, and it's very specific energy and it's very specific purpose. So as I mentioned, I almost always refer to this deck as the portal deck. So if you ever hear me talk about the portal deck, this is the one I'm talking about, even though the technical name is Gateway of Light Activation, which is fine. That's like totally cool. That probably gives people more of an inclination of what the deck is about. But for me, this is a deck of portals, and I have developed a portal reading around that. And so that is generally how I refer to it. It is my portal deck. I use this deck like all the time. I do this portal reading all the time. It is a fantastic way to access different areas of sort of inner knowledge, higher self, higher wisdom. It works great for creativity work. It works great for sort of like inner power work. It also works great for kind of just providing you with a path forward as you're working through particular issues. I really haven't found anything yet that I can't really adapt this reading to answer a question for or to serve the purpose of. So it's really, really versatile in that respect. The cards are your standard oracle size. They are, they do kind of feel a little bit like the Blue Angel matte decks. So I know Hay House has gone through tons of different types of cardstocks. This particular one that I have feels like a Blue Angel matte cardstock, so I think it's absolutely fantastic. I love the cardstock. I love working with it. We can go ahead and give it a little shuffle just so you can see that. Try to cover all the bases. You know, it shuffles beautifully. I don't have any issue with it. I think as I mentioned, as I read from the box, there are 44 cards in this deck. Gorgeous shuffle riffle. It overhands nicely. It's just a real pleasure tactilely to work with as well. Even though it is like, you know, kind of your standard oracle size, so it's a little bit bigger than a tarot. With their only being 44 cards, and like, don't get me wrong, I think 44 cards is a good amount for a deck. When they start dropping kind of below 40, in my opinion, that's kind of a skimpy oracle deck. Like those ones with like 32, 36, that's just like, why bother? Sorry, that was kind of rude. But anyway, I think 44 is a good number. Anywhere between like 40 and, you know, 50, mid 50s, I think is great for an oracle deck. So I do feel like we have plenty of portals or gateways to access within this deck. So real quick, let's just do a little intro into the guidebook. So the guidebook has, you know, of course, your table of contents, and this is actually a pretty detailed table of contents. So everything is kind of broken down, which is really nice. It makes it really easy to find things. We have the cards, which are listed alphabetically because there are no numbers on the cards, which is actually my preference. There's plenty of numbers in tarot. I don't need numbers on my oracle decks. I love that they're alphabetical, and that's how you refer to them in the guidebook. There's quite a bit of introductory information in this little guidebook. And if you are kind of new to that idea of portals or gateways, I highly recommend reading the introduction. It does tell you a lot about how Kyle Gray really interprets those and interacts with those, which is pretty aligned with how I see them too, so it works really well for me. There's a section on how to use your Gateway of Light Activation Oracle, and he talks about, you know, forming a connection between you and the infinite intelligence that is available to you. Again, that is very much how I work with this deck, so I would highly encourage you to read that as well. There's activations. It talks about the gateways, some other things that we find in the deck, chakras, spiritual retreats, light beings, light codes, upgrades, and downloads. Now, there are occasionally words like that can be a little bit like trippy for some people, as in like it'll trip you up because maybe using the phrase light code or upload or download really isn't in your vocabulary. In those instances, I just encourage you to use whatever, you know, word works for you. When you read the entry in the guidebook, you'll get what the essence of that is. So, you know, maybe instead of upgrade, you know, you just want to take a look at it through the lens of sort of just growing or expanding. Downloads, I tend to use the word channel just because that works in my particular practice and in my particular vocabulary. So for me, and a channel can work both ways, as an upgrade or a download, right? As a conduit up or a pipeline down. To me, that's just tapping into anything. So I can do that up or down or sideways or in or out. So anyway, I just, you know, if you come across words like that, I just encourage you to like use other words that feel more in alignment with your practice, because as you read through the guidebook, you'll see that there's lots of things that you'll kind of get the gist of what it's actually talking about if you want to sort of take away those buzzy words. So we have a little bit about working with the cards. He talks about free will and law of attraction. There is, you know, approaching it with integrity, bonding with your deck. There's some activation, an activation prayer to bond with your deck. Now, this kind of stuff, I'll be honest, like I totally skip. The, you know, storing your cards, bonding with your cards, how to conduct an oracle reading. If you're completely new to reading oracle, working with oracle, this can be really, really handy. And I think that's really what these sections of the guidebooks are designed for. But if, you know, if you're like, if you've used an oracle deck before and you're pretty comfortable with it, you can usually skip these parts. Although sometimes, you know, there's some interesting things in there. Like I might read this section on raising the vibration just to kind of get Kyle Gray's understanding of that. I have my own ideas, but it's always nice to expand your understanding. Talks about reading for yourself, reading for another person, strength and challenges, jumpers. That's something you don't often see in oracle decks, so that's kind of an interesting thing there. Reverse cards, again, that's not something you often see in mentioned in oracle decks, although it does seem to be more prevalent these days. So if that's something that you're working with, I don't really work with jumpers or reversals, so I tend to skip those sections. It talks about how often to do a reading. You know, I think including something like that, like that's really subjective. So what one person's idea of doing too many readings is totally different than another person. So I say do the readings as often as you need to or want to. And like there's no rules, so it doesn't matter. Asking questions, I mean, that's always a great thing to kind of look at the types of questions that you might want to ask if you're new. He talks about the 4 pillars of sort of like giving thanks to the decks and everything, which is kind of interesting. Like that's just a different kind of thing. It's not a practice that I do unless I'm working with decks in alignment with a personified deity, but I don't thank my cards at the end of every reading. We do have some spreads here. Again, these are lovely little spreads. I'm going to show you the one that I do. So then we go into the interpretation of the cards. We have a little black and white thumbnail, the card title, those keywords that are on the card. Then we have kind of like about what the card is depicting. Like it kind of tells you what the portal is about, like what the portal's accessing. So this first one is the portal's accessing the Akashic records. We have a little connect, and then we have the message. The message is sort of the divinatory experience of working with the card. And that's pretty much the same setup that we have through each of these. The connect is kind of like how to visualize, or sometimes I think there's like little affirmation style stuff. No, here's an affirmation. So I was right. There's some that are visualizations. The majority of those are, and some that are kind of like affirmation style. When I work with this deck, I really just focus on the portal, although the more you work with this deck, like kind of the more you get to know these portals, right? As with any deck, and then the message. So those are the two things that I tend to dive into with this particular book. And that's pretty much it. So that covers what's going on in the guidebook for the Gateway of Light Activation Oracle. I really enjoy this guidebook. I do actually work with it when I use these cards. That's not always the case with Oracle decks, but for this particular deck, I find it to be really, really helpful. Not necessary though, and I think that's really, really important when it comes to Oracle decks for me. I need to be able to work with an Oracle deck out of the box in a way that works for me. So if I pull this deck out and I just want to be able to pull the card and, you know, get my reading or incorporate tarot into it and not have to dive into a guidebook, I want that option with an Oracle deck. And I think this deck does that really well because we do have a title. Now, maybe that title might not always connect for you. Perhaps if you don't know who Hathor is or what a light code is really relating to, that may be a little bit of a miss, but you can look at those keywords, and that really does make this deck quite functional even without using the guidebook, which I really, really appreciate. But the guidebook adds that extra layer to it, so I do always try to incorporate that. Okay, so let's talk about how I work with this deck and the reading that I do with it. So as I kind of mentioned in my monthly wrap up for February, this deck serves as the portal, the entry into the reading. So this is going to be what I'm doing a reading on, or what it's around, or the energy that I'm trying to access. Now, I say that in all those different ways because it depends on what card comes up for me. So this is often a reading that I go to when I don't necessarily have a hard and fast question. I'm feeling like I need a little bit of guidance. Maybe I don't even know what I need guidance for, right? Maybe I don't have a question. I don't have something specific in mind that I'm trying to work through or work toward or work on. I just feel like, you know, I'm a little bit wandery right now. I need a little bit of guidance. And this particular reading in this deck works really well for that because I kind of let the cards tell me what I need guidance on. So what I will do in alignment with that whole idea of the guided reading that I do, where I let the Oracle deck tell me what tarot deck I'm going to pair with it. So I always pull my Oracle card first. So I will pull my portal, and we got the ancestral realm, karmic release, healing the lineage, and boundaries. So this is my portal. I'm going to be accessing the ancestral realm with this reading, and that is where my knowledge is going to come from. Now I'll do a couple of these just so we can see, you know, how it works with different sort of decks and energies. So I would look at this card and I would think about what tarot deck to me speaks of ancestral energy, speaks to maybe the idea of karmic release, healing the lineage, and boundaries. And I would think about what I have that might answer those questions or provide guidance through that lens for me. So let me pause and grab a deck. Okay, so I do like to, you know, I like the aesthetic thing, so I do like for the decks to match, but I'm more looking at what deck to me speaks of ancestral energy. And for me, that is the Distant Past Tarot. This is a deck, it's a indie deck. I have edged mine, just, you know, always like to call that out just so you know it's not, it doesn't come that way. This deck very much speaks to me of ancestral energy. I'm sure it's, you know, partially the artwork. It is collage, digital collage with a lot of, let me use my normal Renaissance, right? It's always Renaissance in my opinion, or in my vernacular, because I don't know any better. Anyways, this is the deck that speaks to that energy for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it a shuffle. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to think about the ancestral realm and where I might, what I might kind of energy and message I might be getting from the ancestral realm. I might think about who maybe is in my ancestral realm, what messages they might have to share with me. If I had a particular person that maybe I worked with frequently as an ancestor, then maybe I might want to also pull that energy into the reading. I do not at this time, so other than my grandmother who occasionally pops in to say hello. So I'm gonna take a moment, I'm gonna think about that, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually pull 3 cards for each of these 3 keywords. And this is where we're kind of blending that idea of the guided reading, where the oracle card has decided what my portal is and the deck I'm going to use, or the type of deck I'm going to use, I should say. And then the 3 keywords are gonna provide that keyword reading. I'm gonna go ahead and split, and I'm gonna pull a card for karmic release. We got judgment. I mean, how perfect is that? Heal the lineage with Queen of Swords, and boundaries with the Ace of Wands. So that would be my 3 messages coming through in relation to those 3 keywords. Now, I did have a lot of people ask to see this specifically also working with the Moonology manifestation cards. And I feel like this is an appropriate reading to pull that into, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Although sometimes I do use different secondary oracle decks in order to create this sort of wrap-up message. So I would give my Moonology manifestation a shuffle, and basically what I'm looking at now is I've spent some time with this reading, right? I've looked at each of these 3 cards in relation to the keywords that I have related them to, and looking at that through the portal of messages coming from the ancestral realm, wisdom coming from there. And then I will pull a Moonology manifestation card for my sort of wrap up. So I like to do 2 oracles and 1 tarot in this particular type of reading. And here we got last quarter moon in Libra, make time for self-love. So that would be my sort of takeaway message from here, from the ancestral realm. So we can kind of look at it as like this portal reading. We're going to come into the portal here with the ancestral realm. We're going to get our message through the 3 keywords and the 3 tarot decks that we're going to pull in regards to those. And then whatever oracle we decide for our sort of wrap-up message is going to be our portal back out. So that's going to be kind of taking the message out with us. So we're coming into this ancestral realm and we're going to leave with this message. We can also see it as kind of coming full circle, right? We're going to come into the portal, get our message, get our takeaway, and move back out. So that is the main way that I've been working with this deck. It's not super complicated. It's just a real simple kind of 5-card reading, but what I love is that something different comes up every time. So let's go ahead and pull another portal and see what we get, or gateway. I always say portal, it's gateway, but I like portal better. So let's go ahead and just give our deck another little just overhand shuffle, and we'll pull another portal so we can see how this kind of works with different energies and different messages. So this time we got the Halls of Amenti, initiation, with secrets revealed, treasures uncovered, and initiation. This card really speaks to me of the idea of sort of divine, feminine, high priestessy kind of energy. So that is something that I'm going to think about as I'm looking at the decks that maybe I want to pull into this particular reading to help me understand what I'm going to learn in the Halls of Amenti. Okay, so for this one, it's probably going to be no surprise, but I grabbed my Tarot of the Cat People because this deck to me feels like it exists in that sort of otherworldly high priestessy kind of energy. I do also work with it in alignment with personified deity, so like it does feel like it fits there. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my 3 cards for the secrets to be revealed, treasures uncovered, and initiations. So let's see what we get. For our secrets revealed, we got the 4 of Cups. Treasures uncovered, the 9 of Cups. Ooh, lots of emotional energy here. And for our initiation is the 2 of Pentacles. So now I will look at that in relation to those keywords and see where I can access the secrets revealed. Like maybe this is emotional energies coming to the surface within this initiation process. Treasures uncovered, the 9 of Cups. I mean, that's kind of lovely. What we're going to find is sort of that emotional fulfillment. And initiation, the 2 of Pentacles. To me, that really speaks to the idea of balancing maybe the divine sort of high priestessy energy with the sort of everyday mundane. Like, how am I going to bring that into my everyday life? And because I work with this particular deck and combination with the Isis Oracle, I'm going to go ahead and pull the Pocket Oracle because that's just... it's just a deck that I use quite often with the cat people. And you'll find that I think if you do this process enough, you work with a portal of activation. No, gateway of activation. See, I've called it portal deck for so long now, like 3-4 months now, that like that's just what comes to the tip of my tongue. And you might find that as you do this, like certain cards, when they pop up, they'll be immediately tarot decks that you like kind of always use whenever that card comes up. And for me, whenever the Halls of Amenti comes up, I do tend to pull my cat people, and I do tend to pull my Isis Oracle for my wrap up. Okay, so let me give this a little shuffle. Let's go ahead and pull a card. And we got the Queen of Heaven. The Queen of Heaven, the Divine Empress of the Skies, acknowledges your feminine authority now as a man or a woman. You have a life path of spiritual leadership to bringing qualities of mercy, compassion, and wisdom into the world. So that would be my message coming out of the Halls of Amenti, what I'm going to take with me leaving this particular reading. I think that's really beautiful. I think that works really well. Okay, let's do another one. Let's see what else we get. Alrighty, let us give it a shuffle and pull one more portal. Let's see what we get. So we had the Ancestral Realm, we had the Halls of Amenti, and now we are getting the Order of, oh my goodness, I cannot pronounce his name. Embraced by the Light, Mission Uncovered, and Don't Give Up. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. I will just slaughter it. So I haven't talked about the guidebook, like in working with these readings. So this is a good opportunity, and probably partially that is my fault just because these 2 cards I've gotten several times. So I kind of like, I already know what those portals mean. But this is a good opportunity to jump into the guidebook and see what it has to say. So let me look that one up. And when I pull the portal, I do usually get into the guidebook first because that will give me an idea of what the overall message is. And then I can pull my additional cards and expand upon that message. If I pull my cards now and try to do the reading without understanding what this card means, then it's not really going to have a lot of context for me. There's not going to be a connection made there because I'm not going to have any idea what it's really talking about. Oh, look, here's a pronunciation. Melchizedek. Melchizedek? That does not sound right. I'm not going to try that again. So anyway, whose name means King of Righteousness, is the first high priestess mentioned in the Bible, the one who initiated all the great teachers that followed him. He is mentioned in several Abrahamic texts, including the Dead Sea Scrolls and also the Kabbalist Zohar. He is an ancient gatekeeper of the light who is dedicated to helping all those walking the spiritual path to take initiatory step to align with the light. The best way to describe this great being is as a wizard. When you invoke him, you will feel the presence of a loving and angelic grandfather who wants to guide you to your greatness. And then it talks about the actual order. Now, I will say there is a lot of references to biblical things in this book. When I come across things of that nature, I'm not a part of the Christian faith. Although I spent most of my childhood in it, I really rephrase all of that in my mind to be in alignment with my own personal beliefs. So I don't necessarily see this as this particular individual. And I'm kind of glad this came up because now I can sort of address this issue that happens in decks like these, where we have like ascended masters and we have particular angels and things like that. Now, if you saw my video way back in the day when I talked about how I work with angel energy, I do actually work with angels, but I work with them as more of a messenger of the divine, the cosmos, rather than angels in the biblical sense. So I would kind of rephrase that in alignment with my own beliefs, with like, this is basically a divine messenger to me. And so what this divine messenger is going to relay is how to be embraced by the light, maybe what my personal mission is and where I need to kind of keep moving forward in terms of that don't give up. So let's go ahead and read the message so we can kind of see like what this card is trying to tell us. It says, you have learned so much and are now recognizing all the great lessons your experiences and challenges have brought you. This order is coming to you today to encourage you to continue on this pathway and not to give up. Even in moments of darkness and fear, there is an opportunity for you to share your light. If you're feeling overwhelmed, it's imperative for you to know you're not alone. Light is with you and within you, and by invoking spiritual support, you will be able to muster up the strength, courage, and focus you need to surmount whatever challenges you face. So like, that's a great message, and I think that works really well with this idea of how I see it, with this being a divine messenger. The thing I kind of love about this artwork too, and that's definitely something that I take into consideration when I'm working with this deck, is this to me looks like the channel, the conduit between the above and below. And that is very much in alignment with my personal practice. I feel like, and I think I've mentioned it before, that I feel like people, but just people in general, humans in general have the ability to be the conduit between the above and the below. So we can pull from the cosmos and tap into the earth energy and kind of bring those into balance and into alignment within ourselves. And this card really does speak to that energy for me. So it's really about that idea of that cosmic messenger and channeling those energies, and like, how am I going to put that out in the world? Like, I'm doing it. I need to keep with it. And I'm going to go ahead and go with my moon child as upside down, because while this I think would work really well with the star child, or really like any other deck I had. In fact, this one is like kind of pale in comparison. I feel like the star child might even be a little bit better in terms of having that sort of aesthetic match, but this deck to me feels more connected to the earth. It feels more like it's the balance between the 2 points, whereas I mentioned in my monthly wrap-up that the star child feels really, really out in the cosmos, which I love and appreciate, but it's not always how I want to engage with the energy. So I'm going to pull the moon child. So let's pull a card for our embraced by the light. We have the Fool. That's kind of funny. Mission Uncovered is the 10 of Cups. And Don't Give Up is the Devil. How funny is that? So yeah, we're like gonna take off on this new adventure. We're doing this new thing. It's sometimes scary, putting ourselves out there, jumping off the cliff, right? Putting our message out there can be scary, and it can be a new adventure, but we don't always know exactly what we're doing. We're just kind of gonna embrace the light, trust the light. Mission Uncovered, 10 of Cups. Well, hopefully we're gonna bring some good energy, some good vibes to the people around us, right? And don't give up. Don't let the ego, the fears, the shadow self get in your way. I think that's just like a beautiful message. I really do feel like the Moonology would be like the absolute best for this particular reading, and it's probably what one I would go to. But let's say I want to, even though these aren't gonna like aesthetically be beautiful, let's say I want to figure out like how I can do that in a little bit more of an earthy sense. Like, I'm feeling like this reading is very like up in the higher self space, which is not a bad thing, but sometimes that can be a difficult energy to sort of wrap your brain around and to tap into, because it can be so far removed from where we are. So let's bring it back down to earth a little bit, and that's what we're going to do with the earth magic here. This is, I'm throwing cards everywhere. Oh my goodness. I don't work with jumpers. Didn't I just say that? Even though this deck is wanting to jump all over the place. All right, enough shuffling. Let's pull. Let's see what we get. I got my name. How funny is that? You'd think I'd plan these things, but like, I don't. So, okay. How can we bring it down into the real world? We've got New Beginning. Now I can definitely get into the guidebook for this Oracle deck. That's also a beautiful thing to do to add just even more layer and context to your reading. But really what this is telling me is just like make space for the new. Make space for that channel to happen. And while this might not be aesthetically like the best pairings in the world, I really do like the idea of kind of bringing this down into the reality, bringing it down into the earthly realm with that Earth Magic Oracle. But let's just say, you know, because everybody wanted to see the Moon Child or the Moonology, let me pull one of those too, just so we can kind of see what that might look like to have those together. So we got the first quarter moon and Gemini, speak your world into being. I definitely felt like I got that card last month, a couple of times maybe. So again, yeah, that's the message that we can take with us moving forward. Do we want to do one more? Let's do one more. Just because I feel like we were so in the same sort of energies for a lot of this. So let's just go ahead and do another one. Let's say for example, let's do something a little bit different. Instead of randomly drawing a card, let's say there's a specific thing maybe that I want to, portal that I want to tap into. Or maybe I'm not really sure, but I'm gonna go ahead and just flip through this deck until I feel like something calls to me. And I want to engage with that energy. Like, what am I feeling? I'm kind of liking this one, the higher heart activation. So we can do it that way too, right? We don't have to always just randomly draw and let the universe decide our fate in a sense when it comes to the cards that we're using. We can also mindfully go through our deck and select a card. I think that works particularly well with Oracle because like we can go through and see, what am I feeling right now? Do I'm feeling like, you know, I need some sun energy? Am I feeling like I need to maybe tap into some learning and some lessons, or the Holy Grail? Maybe I'm after that. This deck works really well for that too, of being able to kind of just look through it and feel your way through what is it I'm being called to, which card is calling me, rather than just letting it come up a little bit more, you know, randomly. This is still a very organic process because I'm going to look through the deck and I'm going to pull the card that's speaking to me. Okay, let's really just mix things up here. I've got the Tarot of Light, I believe is the new name of this deck. This is the new edition from Blue Angel. And like it's even got a heart on the back. So I feel like that energy really aligns with higher heart activation. So we've got dropping our shields, divine love, and your heart is healed. So let's pull our cards. So for dropping our shields, we got the ego with collapse. Another reason I like this deck is because it does have keywords on it, which isn't always my favorite when it comes to a tarot, but I really like it in this deck because the keywords are always so spot on. So we have divine love with the Queen of Angels with visionary, and your heart is healed with the Ace of Stars and creation. That's beautiful. That gives me just like all of this lovely keyword goodness here with all of these cards. Because I've got dropping my shields with the Tower and collapse, the ego, or the ego, I guess, the ego and collapse. We've got the divine love coming through the Queen of Angels, and she's going to provide that visionary energy. And then the heart is healed with the Ace of Stars and creation. So creating something new, that's where that healing, that higher heart activation is going to come from. I think that's beautiful. Now let's pull in the herbal astrology upside down, just for fun, because I have it and it's new and I want to play with it. I don't know that it necessarily like really aligns with the imagery we have going on here, but I do feel like there is a bit of higher heart activation energy in this deck, because it does have astrology, like plants in astrology, which like kind of is mimicked on this card, right? It's the above and the below, the cosmic energy and the earth nourishment type of a thing. So let's see what we got for it for our wrap up. And we've got Palo Santo with Guardian. So that's fantastic because I feel like it's telling us, and again, getting into the guidebook would be even better, but for time's sake, I'm not going to do that. It's telling us that like we're going to come in and we're going to activate the higher heart. We're going to really tap into that sort of universal love, that universal consciousness. And we're going to be guarded and protected as we do that. So we feel that we can open our heart because we know that we're going to be protected as we do so. So I think that's really beautiful. And again, just a really fun way to work with this reading. And you can see that using different decks, I'm getting totally different readings. So that was really interesting. We did 4 different readings, accessing 4 different portals. We had the Ancestral Realm, the Halls of Amenti, the Order of the Dude I Can't Say His Name, and the Higher Heart Activation. So you can see that like these are all very different portals, and I was able to access very different kinds of information and readings through each one of these by viewing them through the lens of being a portal that I can tap into, an energy that I can access in order to gain that additional information. Like it's got some really great things in here. We have the Akashic Records, the Star Being Healing Codes, the Orion Activation, Memories of Atlantis, Temple of Truth, Crystal Skull of Wisdom, the Divine Matrix, Stargate Heart. I love that one. It's one of my favorite cards. The Crown Chakra Upgrade, I Am Presence, Akashic Stargate, Holy Grail, Arcturian Light Codes, Emerald Tablet Activation, Sirius Star Blessings, the Central Sun, the Gaia Gateway Activation, the Solar Light Upgrade, Shambhala Initiation, Halls of Learning, Heart of Source. I feel like this would be another good one for that Tarot of Light. Stellar Gateway Activation, Sword of Light, very Michael energy for me there. Soul Star Activation, Earth Star Activation, Sacred Inner Space, Chamber of the Violet Flame, Seraphim's Gateway, Hathor Light Codes, Inner Earth, Anunnaki Light Codes, Lemurian Star Codes, Thoth Light Codes, Third Eye Activation, Star Gathering, Angelic Frequencies, Venusian Galactic Council, Merkaba Activation, Karmic Board Clearing, and Palladian Activation. So you can see like there's a lot of very star-seedy type of language with this deck, but I think that the keywords do really help to bring it down into a realm that those of us who don't really work with the whole starseed energy, I say those of us, although I kind of do, in a loose sense. But just by pulling in those keywords and then again adding tarot to that, we can really look at that through a lens that will make sense to us. So like for the Palladian activation, you know, maybe Palladian energy isn't something that you work with or even are familiar with, but we all know what coming together means. We all know what harmony in the heavens or the cosmos, the universe means, and we all know what resolution means. Again, talking about those, you know, kind of words that might be a little bit trippy for you, you can always rephrase them. Like instead of harmony in the heavens, maybe it's harmony in the universe, harmony in the solar system, harmony in the all, whatever that might be for you. So I do really, really like this deck. I mean, clearly I'm doing a whole video on it. I've developed a whole reading around it. It's been one that I've used a lot for just, I really don't know what I need right now, but I know I need something. And so I'll pull this card out or this deck out, and then depending on what I get, sometimes it is very up in that cosmos energy, and like I'm pulling out my star child and I'm, you know, getting my moonology out and I'm really going up into the cosmos energy. But sometimes I get those really, really earthy ones, of which, you know, I'm currently not finding any like the Ancestral Realm. To me, that feels very much in an earthy sort of energy. The Gaia Gateway for sure feels like in that earthy energy. So sometimes it is also very grounded into the earth, and then the decks and the readings will revolve around that. So I love that it does have that sort of above and below kind of energy to it, because it does mirror my own personal practice and sort of the way I see the world, as in, you know, like I talked about with that one card, like there's the heavens and the earth, or the above and the below, and then the channel, we are in between, and we have access to both, and kind of like, what are we going to do with that? So I think it's a beautiful deck. I really love the artwork in it. And I also really, really like the keywords on it, the titles on it. The little guidebook is fantastic. So I definitely recommend it if this is a practice that you are interested in. It's been a really great reading to cultivate, and I've worked with it in a lot of different ways, and I do really like that kind of using it in that guided way where I let the oracle deck or the oracle card kind of choose what tarot I'm going to pair with it. Does also mean that I get to experience this deck through a lot of different lenses because I'm pairing it with not only other tarot decks but also other oracles, which is really cool. So that is a look at how I've been working with the Gateway of Light Activation Oracle, aka my portal deck. As always, you'll find links for everything I've shown here in the description box below. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I look forward to sharing with you again soon.